Hey, Beau! Why do we get attachments to people and things? And should we allow this to happen?
Like all of these questions, I find them really fascinating and important, and they really get at the fundamentals of life, and attachment being one of those. Uh, I find it interesting that the question implies the idea that maybe we shouldn't form attachments, and I want to think about why that might be. And I'm here in Madrid in a fairly anonymous hotel uh, because tomorrow I'm giving a keynote for all the heads of schools, the English schools in Spain, which seems very relevant in thinking about education and whether children should form attachments. And my argument is that yes, of course we should form attachments. And in fact, you can't help but form attachments. And maybe the basis for thinking about why we shouldn't comes from Buddhism, uh, that we should sort of dissociate ourselves from desires. Well, my understanding, having studied a bit of Buddhism throughout my last many years, in fact, I was a religious studies minor at University of California, Berkeley, uh, is that there's a sort of a misunderstanding of that letting go of desire. It isn't that necessarily that you should let go of the desire for love, that you shouldn't have an attachment to love, but rather you should let go of your desire for what love looks like, for that manifestation of love, that person or that thing or that place. So, yes, be in the pursuit of love, hold on to that attachment, but let go maybe of what you think love should look like. Which then brings me to this idea that something like love and how these attachments actually come to define us. They are, in a sense, essential to our being. They enable us to move, to adapt, to become agile. So, what we become attached to is essential, and becoming conscious about what you adapt to. So, what we become attached to is essential, and therefore becoming conscious of what you are attached to is essential. Because often, and maybe too often, those attachments don't serve you, don't serve the person to whom you're attached or the thing to which you're attached. And what might that mean? Maybe it's because that attachment is actually holding you down. Or maybe you're holding it or him or her down, which it doesn't enable you, it doesn't give you that foundation, that sandbar, which I've talked about before, from which to explore and to expand. And so often our attachments are a constraint, and we even choose them to be a constraint. And even that attachment to our own identity, to our own self, we find it so difficult often letting go of the attachments that we form that we've discovered to be maybe not so good for us. Even the attachments that we have to our past traumas or past pains, we can form a very strong bond to those because they can come to define who we are. They become part of our identity. And to let those go is remarkably difficult. So I'm just looking at my lab book here. So yes, your brain will form an attachment. It can't help but do so. But you become conscious of those attachments that you're forming because they will come to define you. They'll come to identify who you are.